All praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Rakah Kwadash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, and Shalom to the elected nation of Israel. This is going to be a quick video going into the phrase that people like to say, where they say, oh, that's the New Testament, or that's talking about the New Testament, right? Oh, I believe in the New Testament, as if they're doing something right, and they think that somehow the things that are mentioned in the Old Testament and the things that are mentioned in the New Testament of the Bible are separated by some kind of great void, which is not true, because the New Testament and what it actually is mentioned in the Old Testament portion of the Bible, right? Now, I'm just going to explain what I mean by that. And this is a quick entry from a Bible dictionary, the Castle Books Bible Dictionary, just going into what the word testament means, which people can go into in anywhere else. You can just go and read what the word testament means anywhere else. You can go on Google, anything, and you will get the same answer, but I'm just reading it from here. It says testament, and it mentions Hebrews 9:15, and it says, when applied to the scriptures, is used in the same sense as covenant, right? So what does that mean? It means that when you open up your Bible, right, which everyone's Bible will have pretty much the same thing. When you open up your Bible, you'll see something roughly like this, right? You'll see that it will say Old Testament there, and you'll see that it will say New Testament. But what that could also say there is Old Covenant, and then it could also say New Covenant, right? Now, in the Old Testament portion of the Bible from Genesis to Malachi, right, it mentions what the New Covenant is, and I'm going to read it right now. And it's mentioned in the book of Jeremiah, the 31st chapter. It mentions what the New Covenant is, right? But you know what? In fact, before I read what it says the New Covenant is, I'm going to show what it says. I'm going to show what the Old Covenant was, all right? So this is, one second. This is Exodus chapter 24 and verse 4. Exodus 24 and verse 4. And Moses wrote all the words of Yahweh, and rose up early in the morning and builded an altar under the hill, and 12 pillars according to the 12 tribes of Israel. And he sent young men of the children of Israel, which offered burnt offerings and sacrificed peace offerings of oxen unto Yahweh. And Moses took half of the blood and put it in basins, and half of the blood he sprinkled on the altar. And he took the blood of the covenant and read in the ordinance of the people, and they said, all that Yahweh said we will do, and be obedient. And Moses took the blood and sprinkled it on the people, and said, behold, the blood of the covenant which Yahweh made with you concerning all these words. Now Yahweh Shai did something similar with his disciples, but he gave them a symbolic thing, because it wasn't time for his blood to be shed yet. And he said to the disciples, this is the blood of my testament, or the blood of the New Testament, that is shed for you, right? That is shed for you. Roughly said that. I don't remember exactly where it is off the top of my, you know what? Let me try and see if I can find it, man. I don't want to misquote something like that. I think it's in the book of Luke. And it's in other places as well. But I think I'm more likely to find it if I try and find it in the book of Luke, man. Because Yahweh Shai did something similar to what Moses did. Let me see if I can find that. If I can't find it in this video, what I'll do is I'll find it on my phone or whatever, and then I'll put it in the comment section. I found it. This is Luke chapter 22 and verse 20. Likewise, in fact, I'll start at verse 18. Luke 22 and verse 18. For I say unto you, I will not drink of the fruit of the vine until the kingdom of Yahweh shall come. And he took bread and gave thanks. And I'll read it at verse 18 again. For I say unto you, I will not drink of the fruit of the vine until the kingdom of Yahweh, my power, the Most High, shall come. And he took bread and gave thanks and brake it and gave unto them, saying, this is my body, which is given for you. This do in remembrance of me. Likewise also the cup, likewise also the cup after supper, saying, this cup is the New Testament in my blood, which is shed for you, right? So he said something similar to his disciples, who all of them were Israelites. None of them were heathens. Right, now back to Exodus again, Exodus 24 and verse 8. And Moses took the blood and sprinkled it on the people and said, behold the blood of the covenant which Yahweh have made with you concerning all these things. And Yahweh Shai's blood was also for the Israelites. Right? Jeremiah 31 and verse 31. I'm just going to go straight to it. Jeremiah 31 and verse 33. But this shall be the covenant that I'll make with the house of Israel. Right? That I'll make with the house of Israel after those days, saith Yahweh. I'll put my law in their inward parts and write it in their hearts, and I will be their God, and they shall be my people. Now you have to jump up to verse 31 to see that it's actually talking about a new covenant. Jeremiah chapter 31 and verse 31. Behold, the days come, saith Yahweh, that I will make a new covenant or a new testament. Right? And if I'm, you know what? Instead of saying the word covenant, I'm going to say the New Testament. Right? Behold, the days come, saith Yahweh, that I'll make a new testament with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah, not according to the testament that I made with their fathers in the day that I took them by the hand to bring them out of the land of Egypt, which my testament they break, although as a husband unto them, saith Yahweh. But this shall be the testament that I make with the house of Israel after those days, saith Yahweh. I'll put my law in their inward parts and write it in their hearts, and I'll be to them a power, and they shall be to me a people. It's no different. If I change out the word covenant from the word testament, it's still the same thing. Right? So when all you Christians are thinking that you're being slick, saying, oh, that's the New Testament, that's the Old Testament, right? What Paul was talking about, who you Christians like to mention all the time, everything that Paul spoke about, right? And I'm going to get it, man. Don't worry. I'm going to get it for all you Christian bug outs out there that think that you know what's going on in the Bible, man, and you don't know, right? You don't know. This is Acts chapter 24 and verse 14. But this I confess unto thee, that after the way which they call heresy, so worship I the power of my fathers, believing all things that are written in the law and in the prophets. So everything that Paul was doing, right? Everything that Paul was doing, everything that Paul was talking about. 1 second, Salakia. My phone battery's gone dead. My phone screen went dark. Everything that Paul was talking about, everything that Paul was speaking about, was to bring in things that are written in the Old Testament, which is included in the New Covenant, right? So he didn't make or come up with no new doctrine to bring in heathens into it. He spoke about things that's in the Old Testament, within the law and the prophets, including then what's written in the book of Obadiah. And how do we know that Paul was aware of the book of Obadiah? Well, you just have to listen to the things that he mentioned, that he spoke in Romans, the 9th chapter, right? He spoke about how the Edomites are the vessels of wrath fitted to destruction, which matches the prophecy of Obadiah in the 1st chapter and the 18th verse. Romans chapter 9 and verse 23, and that he might make, verse 22, Romans 9 and 22. What if God, willing to show his wrath and to make his power known, endured with much long suffering the vessels of wrath fitted to destruction? Does that not match the prophecy of Obadiah? Yes, it does, right? It does match it. Obadiah, right? Obadiah chapter 1 and verse 18, right? Obadiah chapter 1 and verse 18. And the house of Jacob shall be a fire, and the house of Joseph a flame, and the house of Esau for stubble, and they shall kindle in them and devour them, and there shall not be any remaining of the house of Esau, for Yahweh has spoken it, right? And that's just no different than Edomites being a vessel of wrath fitted to destruction, man. Right? But this isn't what this particular video is about, but it's still good to mention because it's true, right? It's about how Christians think that they're being slick when they say, oh, I'm about the New Testament, or I only read the New Testament of the Bible, or I'm about the New Testament. But what is the New Testament? What is the New Covenant, right? Is the New Covenant or the New Testament something that belongs to all nations, or is the New Testament a changed version of what the Old Testament was? And the only thing being changed is how those Israelites that had the Old Testament are going to receive the law prior to the new, right, which has not taken place yet. They was told the law and it was written on tablets, or the Israelites made several different manuscripts of the Torah, which was written by hand, right? And now it's going to be that every single Israelite is going to have the laws of the Torah written in their hearts so that they do them perfectly. That's what it's going to be. And I'm going to end the lesson there. All praises to Yahweh, Ba'asham Yahweh Shai, Ba'asham Makar Kodash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, and Shalom to the nation of Israel. Shalom.